Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Chris's Habs Corner. Just gonna go over a pretty quick news update today. Meant to put it out yesterday, just got too caught up with work. I'm gonna try to just make this pretty short. Montreal came out with a couple of injury updates yesterday. David Savard, Alex Belzil, and Sean Monahan. Their seasons are over. Savard with the Belzil with the broken leg, Savard having knee surgery, and Sean Monahan with the groin surgery. David Savard, nothing but a stabilizing presence this year. Sixth in the league in blocking shots, I think, before he was pulled out last week. It's going to be a big presence to miss for these last few games, but well deserved for him. He's been nothing but a leader and a role model for this young D-core this year, and the way he's just played steady hockey with no matter who he was paired with this year. So, he deserves the rest. He deserves the time off to heal, and hopefully he just gets a speedy recovery with that. As far as Sean Monahan goes, that's no surprise that he's out for the season. He's been out since December. We all knew he wasn't going to come back this year, Something along the lines of not recovering fully with the foot in his cast caused his groin injury along those lines. So something, overstretched his groin area while he's recovering from that foot injury he sustained, caused him to have that groin surgery. It's frustrating with Sean Monahan is that along with using him as an asset to trade at the deadline and to flip him to gain draft picks and what have you, he was really influencing, I think, other sentiment on this team, especially a guy like Kirby Dach. Just with the way Sean Monahan's really good at seeing the plays unfold and just being assertive and knowing where he's going to go with the puck and distribute it and what he's going to do. His decision-making with everything was always calm and poised, and I think that kind of rubbed off on players like Kirby Dach. Even the line mates he was playing with, Josh Anderson and Slavkovsky, were with him back in December, November, had some good chemistry with him for a while. And just the way he could control the tempo and the pace at times, I think he was just a really intelligent player that kind of passed along some of his habits to other players, and it's just going to be frustrating that we wasted almost an entire season on him. Wasn't able to flip him at the deadline. We weren't able to really move him. And he was playing good hockey before he left, and he wasn't able to keep sustained play time throughout the year to really see, potentially if we would keep him around next year, or, if we didn't move him at the deadline, if he was able to return, we could, trade him as an asset in the summertime. Now, we're not so sure about any of those. Those are all questions hanging up in the air right now. So that's a little frustrating. Then Alex Belzil going out with that broken leg, he's played hard ever since his call-up from Laval. And good for him to score, 5 or 6 goals, being called up as a 31-year-old, the whole AHL career guy. Finally getting his first goal, I believe, back in February against the Oilers. He's nothing but a hard-working, just total energy guy with a little bit of finesse and a little bit of puck skills. And, you feel bad for him. I'm sure he wanted to leave his mark and go off on a high note to really leave a good impression for the Habs to consider him potentially being a rotating in and out fourth-line guy next year. And now that kind of hindered and stepped him back from that. He was really, out of all the line combinations that were mixed up this year, because of just this wild amount of injuries, out of all of that, when he was called up, he had consistent play with Michael Pezzetta and a lot of times with Chris Tierney on that fourth line. They were, Pezzetta and Belzil were the most consistently playing together for the most part since his call-up in January or February, and they were developing some pretty good chemistry together, Even Belzil rubbed off on Pezzetta a little bit with some of his vision and creativity besides just a north-south smash and bash kind of hockey along the boards. They, like I said, we're developing some pretty good chemistry together. So that's a little frustrating. Along with that, Harris, Evans, Doc, not seen at practice on Monday. Don't know what's up with Jordan Harris. Don't know what's up with Jake Evans. I know Doc's been out for the past week, ever since that game in Buffalo with colliding into the net on that breakaway. So I don't know. I don't even know if Doc's going to be seen for the rest of the season. Same thing with Jordan Harris. He recently came back into the lineup after missing a week or so. So I don't know if they re-aggravated their injuries or what. And same thing with Jake Evans. Who knows? All I know is with 5 games left on the year, the importance is preserving these players. Not putting them in the lineup if you don't have to. At this point, who really cares? It's not worth re-aggravating an injury when there's this much left on the home stretch here. I just think if we have to, call it even more roster spots from Laval at this point. It's just not worth it, and it just begs the questions even more, and even leads to more clarity as to what the hell is going on inside our training staff. Now it's really opening up doors to more questions, not so much just in regards to how are we handling injury situations and how are we handling players trying to influence training staff on injury situations, but are there appropriate strength and conditioning, criteria, not just with injury players, but just in general? What are the programs like, Are these players properly sticking to their recovery plans? Are they getting the right therapeutic exercises, strength and conditioning exercises for their injuries? Along with the obvious questions of are these players even being properly evaluated to be able to return? So that's a little frustrating, and definitely something that's going to be looked at in the off season with a lot of microscopes. And to be honest, I hope something changes. I really do. There's 2 years in a row, most man games lost to injury. It's not even a question that something is off the wall. Something is just not properly going on correctly within the training staff of this team. I just think they need to reassess their programs with preventing injuries. Maybe it has something to do with more proper skating and balance drills within their strength and conditioning criteria. We've seen a lot of lower body, a lot of just generally lower body injuries this year. Maybe there just needs to be a different viewpoint on how to properly absorb the hits along the boards at the NHL level for a lot of these rookies, or to properly have your balance in the right angle, the right leverage, right positioning along the boards. So I hope something changes with that. And then, a lot of people are going over the Pierre-Luc Dubois situation. There's been a lot of talk about that the whole year, and especially this past week or so. A lot of stirring up chit-chat about Pierre-Luc Dubois. All I'm going to say about that really is I'm not an expert with how the free agency terms and contracts and the numbers games and all that stuff. I'm not an expert with any of that stuff. But from my understanding, not this year, next year, he is an unrestricted free agent. This summer he's going to be a restricted free agent, and all I know is in order to obtain him this summer, we would have to give up some of our system players, some of our players down in Laval, some of our prospects. And why would you do that when you could just wait one more year? And if he truly does want to come to Montreal like he says he does, like his agents are reaching out saying he does, and like just the public and the media are really portraying that he wants to be here, then let him show that through his actions in the offseason when he's an unrestricted free agent. In order to bring him in this year will kind of just not hinder, but it'd get in the way of the development of some of our own players, you know. If you were to bring him in this summer, you'd arguably might have to have a situation where Kirby Dach would not be playing center, he'd be playing wing in a top six situation. I'd rather much see him develop as a center next year and see what you have in him as a centerman. Like he was before Kirby Dach got injured this year, he was playing some really good hockey playing as a centerman, developing at the NHL level, and I want to see that continue next year. And Dubois coming in might really hinder that situation a little bit. I just think maybe we want to call up somebody like Owen Beck to see how he's developing as a centerman. Maybe we want to just let all these prospects and like guys like Kirby Dach just marinate another year in the development before we bring him in. I think that's not going to hurt anybody. We're not really truly projected to be a playoff team next year anyways. What do we have to lose? And then the next season in free agency, if he, like I said, really wants to come along on the train ride, bring him in. We'll have a pretty good rotation of centers. Suzuki, Dubois, Doc, Jake Evans. I don't think Christian Dvorak's really going to be in the big picture. If we have to, at that point in time, if we have to put Kirby Dach on the wing, either on the first line with Suzuki or on the second line with Pierre-Luc Dubois, so be it. At least Dach has the experience playing center, and he's able to, play his style of play in the way he plays at the center position and feel comfortable with it because he's a centerman. It's a lot easier to transition a centerman to play wing than it is for a winger to play center. Just a more cerebral player naturally can just adjust to playing more of a north-south direct game as a winger anyways. And we saw Kirby Dach play wing with Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki at the beginning of the year and thrive in that position, So I think that's my opinion on that. Wait for him to come to us without us having to sacrifice anything. I don't think we should have to rush to sacrifice any of our prospects because we really don't know what we have with some of them yet. It's only been a year with Owen Beck. It's only been a year with guys like Joshua Watt. It's only been a little bit of time here, and just good things come with time, so it's better to just let those prospects marinate another year and really see what we have in them first anyways, And then just another thing I wanted to touch on is obviously everybody's talking about Emil Heineman coming over last week from the Swedish Hockey League. He signed a 3-year entry-level contract deal with Montreal at the beginning of the season when he came here in training camp. I know he believe he had to sign an extra contract in order to play with Laval. Otherwise, he would have had to come straight to the Habs. So he made that, his agents made that arrangement for him to play out the rest of the season with Laval now. And he had 6 goals since coming into the lineup with Laval. That's wild. I think it's not too shocking considering how good of a training camp he had. He was heavy on the puck. He is a guy that we saw from training camp is really good in space and utilizes space to his advantage to make something happen. He gets to those scoring areas when he doesn't have the puck. He sees the offensive side of the game really well. And he's able to get his shot through traffic, and he has a unique shot skill set, and the way he's just able to corral the puck and just wire it, deadly accurate, top shelf. It's a laser of a shot that he has, his snap and wrist shot, and I just think to have a player that has that finish first, non-playmaker, just finish, just touch skill set to him is pretty valuable. In Laval and in Montreal, Laval, I know there's a lot of talk about them needing a finisher, someone that's a scorer, because they have the playmakers, they have the ability to set up plays. They just have trouble off plays and really driving to the net in that sense. And he's that perfect player. And same thing with the Habs. it's good to have a shoot first, score mentality. Who knows? Maybe next year he could fit in, slide in a middle six position. Um, and similar to a guy like Gurionov in the sense where he's sneaky quiet, getting into the scoring areas where he doesn't have the puck and he's able to just have that beautiful shot. Could really help us out in our power play potentially. I know a few of his goals in Laval have already come on the power play this year. He's a guy that's built for the power play. He operates in the power play. He's just better when he has that open space. He's just really good with his puck skills in open space, along with his shot as well. There was a little bit of concern from him coming over from European ice with the rinks being a little bit more wider as to less time and space, less time to see the play unfold. I just think some players naturally it clicks for them when they come over pretty quickly, and some players it just takes more time. I don't think it really. It just depends on who you are, and it seems like he's transitioned seamlessly coming over to North American ice. He hasn't really been a step behind the play too much. He hasn't been out of position too much. It seems like he's really transitioned well onto this ice, and he's not lost out there. It seems like he's fitting in comfortably. So, and then again, he also had that experience in preseason before he went back over to the Swedish Hockey League anyways. So it's not like he's totally foreign to this ice. So that's good news to have someone like that in Laval, in the system. Just so that's good. He's going to help him go on a deep playoff run. I think he's really stepped up there and obviously been one of their biggest producers since joining the team. He's really going to help him out. Laval's fighting for that last playoff spot in that North Division in the AHL, and they needed a boost from somebody like that with all the call-ups, being called up to the Habs. And then some news coming out over the weekend. I'm sure you guys have all heard. Jacob Dubious signed a 2-year entry-level deal, and then he agreed to another deal to finish out the season with Laval after his season was over with Ohio State, playing arguably the most competitive, toughest division, the Big Top 10 division in the NCAA. This year with Ohio State, he had 42 wins, 28 losses, 9 overtime losses in total. The whole NCAA season he played with a .229 goals allowed average, .926 save percentage. Those are pretty good numbers. Those are pretty solid numbers for a goalie. Seems like he just knows how to get it done. He's 6'4", 201 pounds. Obviously coming over from the Czech Republic. We drafted him, I think, 146th overall in the 2020 draft. So with Primo being called up to play some games here, and Montembeault obviously carrying the load with the Habs, and I know Kevin Poulin down in Laval has kind of been battling some injury issues here and there. Caden Primo's been taking the majority of the workload down there, so I'm sure it's going to be nothing but a breath of fresh air to have Jakob Dobish come in and start some games just to see what he has. And, playing in that big NCAA tournament at the end of the season, and from the looks of it, he stole some games there, and he really thrived in those high-pressure situations. He might really help Laval go out on a playoff run. And so, don't really know a whole lot about him. I just know that it's good to just have another goaltender in the system. Good to see what he has, because we don't completely know the future of this team in the goaltending area. Jake Allen's going to leave one way or another pretty soon. Montembeault, would love to see him as a starter, but we don't entirely know 100% for sure. We do know he's either a starter or someone that could split a tandem with someone else, not a complete backup. Someone that could split a 50-50 workload throughout the season kind of deal. Because I do believe he's more than just a backup, but I don't know if he's a complete starter yet. And so we don't know if the Habs are going to be patient enough to see out Caden Primo and see his game mature and see what he really has. He has 2 or 3 years left on this deal with us, and he hasn't entirely found his game at the NHL level, and we don't know if we're going to be able to see him be able to do that. So it's good to have Jacob Dubious in the system to see what he potentially has as well, and just create that competition internally between him and Primo in Laval, and see who's really going to step up and thrive in that situation. So that's a good problem to have down there, I think, and it's just going to possibly help clear the path to the goaltending question marks we have in the future of this organization. Just a couple other quick things to touch on. There's like 5 games left on the season, including tonight. The Habs have a game at home against Detroit. A guy that I want to touch on real quick is Gurianov. He came in after that trade with Dallas, and he was on a heater for like 5, 6, 7 games. He scored 5 goals, and I believe in that time span, 5 goals and something like I want to say 6, 7 assists, and he's just kind of fallen off the earth a little bit after that point. This last stretch of 9, 10 games, he hasn't really. I think he's produced a couple of assists. He doesn't. He has a big body. Obviously, he's over 6 foot, over 200 pounds. But just like everybody has been saying, and I agree, he doesn't play like he's big. He doesn't use his frame to drive towards the more physical areas, the more louder areas in board battles, and to just drive through players into the interior positions towards the front of the net. He stays in the quiet areas, when he has the puck and when he doesn't. And his game is a little bit too predictable, like I've said before. Still, he's still just when he has the puck, turns on the jets and tries to drive around the net. Doesn't have enough creative vision sometimes, I think, when he has the puck to just look and see the ice, see the open areas. I would just like to see him be a little bit more productive, maybe try to drive more to the inside, try to just play more of a physical brand of hockey with his size overall, and be more involved. He's just been really quiet. So, and then I know the organization wants to see Primo and see how his development. You have a benchmark on the year as to how his production's gone this year, and so they're going to play him tonight and probably play him another game. But I want to see Montembeault in that, especially the last 2 or 3 games there against Boston, Toronto, and New York. Teams that are thriving going into the playoffs. New York fighting for their playoff lives. And that's just going to be really good to see if Montembeault can truly, be a starter when he plays against those really, really good teams. I'd like to just see how consistent he is in those last 3 games against those really tough teams. Obviously he's going to get peppered with a lot of shots. And I've been saying, if he can just show that he can consistently show up game after game, I think he's a starter. And so seeing him play like these last 3, even 4 games, if you play in the last 4 games of the season, it's really going to help clarify as to whether or not he can be the starter for this team. Making 47 saves the other night on 50 shots on net obviously helped his case out a lot. And I just want to see it build from there and see the consistency. So I know we're playing Primo tonight, but I hope they play Montembeault honestly out the rest of the way, so we could just help get our answer on that. Well, that's really all I got for this episode, guys. Going to be coming out tomorrow with a game reaction after the game against Detroit. So stay tuned for that. Go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel. Help me grow out to 100 subscribers. Please, please. Thank you, guys. Talk to you next time.